Good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the webinar today. We are joined by many longtime customers and colleagues interested in this fascinating topic, dark web monitoring. With me on the webinar today is our Client Success Manager, Andre Gonzalez. Also joining us is Katie Wallace from ID Agent, our partner company. So now I'd like to turn over the presentation to Andre Gonzalez from Arctic IT.
Thank you, Joanne, and hello to everyone. We're very excited to be presenting to you today as part of the series of informational talks we've been giving during Cybersecurity Month and our education efforts around that. As Joanne mentioned, my name is Andre Gonzalez, and as one of the client success managers for Arctic IT, I enjoy finding opportunities to educate the community at large about IT items that are important for businesses to be aware of. A couple of the other client success managers are also listening in, John and Rob. So if you are an ArcticCare Essentials client and want to know more, you know who to call. At Arctic IT, we take pride on educating ourselves constantly to be able to stay ahead of any threats that may affect our managed services clients. So moving on to the next slide here, you'll see that we prepared some great information along with our partner, ID Agent. In this session, we'll cover a little bit about us, a lot about the dark web, notes on how credentials are compromised. We'll explore what dark web monitoring can bring to the table, and we'll do a quick tour of the amazing dark web ID tool. We'll give you some quick tips as well on how to protect your sensitive company data. And if you stick around, we'll host a Q&A session. So, to those of you that are just now getting to know us, welcome. And let's tell you a little bit about us, Arctic IT, the company that's bringing you this information. We're a security-minded technology company that's been growing for over 16 years. And as part of the Doyon family of companies, we're 8A certified. Although we're a nationwide company with employees in over 20 states, our home and headquarters is still right here in Anchorage, Alaska. We also are always very proud to share that we're a Microsoft Gold partner. And what that means is that we've attained excellence within the Microsoft stack of tools and products and have staff that knows those products in and out. Only 1% of all technology providers worldwide qualify for this honor. Our organization runs in two main lines of business which are closely related. ArcticCare is our managed IT services offering. That's your help desk and network support. This is the section where dark web monitoring lives, which we'll be previewing today. Arctic Ascend is our business applications implementation and support offering that we provide both on-premise and in the cloud. This gives our team members a unique perspective in viewing an organization's technology needs, as we've got a great deal of varied experience. For those unfamiliar with our ArcticCare options, we have a streamlined network help desk offering with just some essential security additions called ArcticCare Essentials. For these folks, we create reports and let them know where their security vulnerabilities are and also provide phishing training and education. We call that phish training security testing because industry and governmental reports show that email threats are the #1 vector for cyber criminals to infiltrate your defenses nowadays. Moving into our advanced option, we layer in a whole lot of technology to work for you. Advanced AI monitoring, auditable device encryption, ransomware instant defense, used hardware disposal because we know that security doesn't end at the trash can. And last, but certainly not least, what we're going to be talking about today, dark web monitoring. We even offer ArcticCare Secure for those organizations that are happy with their internal help desk and would just like for us to layer in the security components. So, the message we've collected you here for. I've been throwing this idea of the dark web at you this whole time, and there may be some of you that are unfamiliar with the terminology. So as mentioned at the top of the meeting, we've invited an expert on the subject to speak to you this morning. She'll be covering what the dark web is and why this tool is such an exciting addition to your IT security arsenal. You may see your screen flick white for a moment as I pass the presentation over to Katie Wallace with ID Agent.
Absolutely. I want to thank the Arctic IT team for having me here today and being a part of this presentation. You know, I'm always excited to talk about the dark web and dark web monitoring, but their team, you know, they're truly dark web experts themselves. So as I move forward here, I'm going to show this iceberg. Now, we've all seen this iceberg before, and we've all seen it represent different services or different things out there. But what it's going to represent for us today is the internet. And what you and I know as the internet is only the surface web. The surface web is a portion of the World Wide Web. You know, that's what www stands for before every URL. And only 4% of the internet that we use is that. The surface web is the internet that we all know and love to surf. The internet we use to run our businesses, what we use to get on Facebook or LinkedIn, you know, to connect with our friends or family. And this is the internet that we use to connect with our customers as well. Now that we know that it's only 4% of the actual internet, I want to move a little bit deeper. Now, as we move into the space represented by the middle of the iceberg here, it's estimated that 96% of the internet lives below the surface. It's an estimate because nobody really knows how big the deep web truly is, but it's hundreds or maybe perhaps thousands of times bigger than the surface web. The deep web consists of data that you won't be able to locate with a simple Google search, meaning that it's hidden. The deep web has some very common uses, like email services live on the deep web. You don't want somebody being able to Google an email and yours come up. Or online banking sites live here. Your doctor's office, they will keep patients' profiles here. You know, universities or the education sector, they also use the deep web to keep students' information safe and secure. Now, there's a flip side to the deep web that's a lot murkier and sometimes a lot darker, which is also known as the dark web, and that's represented by the bottom of the iceberg here. And often, the dark web users really do intentionally blur out that data. Oftentimes, there's parts of the dark web that are only accessible if you have a special browser or special software to help you peel the onions away like a layer. To get access to the dark web, you know, you do need a specific browser. It's called the Tor browser. But the Tor browser was actually created by the U.S. Department of Defense. The dark web, you know, isn't all illicit deals and seedy undertakings like we're going to talk about in a second. It's actually used for an array of purposes. Journalists will use the dark web to help protect the anonymity of their sources. Like I mentioned, the government had originally created the Tor browser used to access the dark web. So they still use it today in a lot of whistleblower situations, again, to keep the anonymity or the anonymous sources still anonymous. But unfortunately, the dark web does carry a notorious reputation as a haven for criminals, terrorists, nefarious sites, and everything in between. You know, it's a huge marketplace for stolen data and personal information. After a data breach or a hacking incident, personal data, your company's data, is often bought and sold on the dark web by identity thieves. And those identity thieves, they're looking to make money off of your good name and any numbers or information associated with you. Just to show you how legitimate sites are on the dark web, I asked our team of analysts for a screenshot to share with you. This screenshot in particular is from a website that is on the dark web, and their business is to sell stolen credit card and debit card information. Now, this site's very popular, and this site will sell your information from anywhere between $5 and $110. So pretty affordable to buy stolen credentials on the dark web. This is a full package purchase from the fraudsters or from this website. So this will include your stolen name, your social security number, your birth date, your account numbers, even the codes that you need to use your card. Really, any piece of information that's necessary to use your card. Sites like this will even discreetly mail you the credit card so you have the physical card to use, and your neighbors won't even know what you're up to. You can even leave reviews for websites on the dark web. They truly are run like a business, again, to make money off of your good name or your good information. This is similar to how somebody would leave a Google review for your company as well. As you can see in this text here, thank you for giving us another chance to provide you with the best credit card. Here, I want to show you on this slide some examples of the websites that live on the dark web. You know, you have dark web chat rooms, you have hacking sites, you have hidden theft forums and P2P file leaking sites. There's also some C2 servers / malware, and malware, you know, it's a virus that can be installed on a computer to help comb your PC for credentials that might be worth something on the dark web. The dark web also has its own version of social media sites. Again, they definitely are like Facebook or Twitter like we know today, but cyber criminals are using these social media sites on the dark web to share information as well. So now that we know, you know, a little bit about what the dark web is, what cyber criminals are doing out there on the dark web, how is your information winding up there? The first thing that I want to talk about today are phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are a persistent threat to a business. You know, a staggering 90% of data breaches involve phishing. We've all likely received a phishing email at one point, whether we've realized it or not. You know, phishing is an attempt to acquire your information, such as potentially a username, a password, or financial information via impersonation or by spoofing. So basically, a cyber criminal is pretending to be somebody else or pretending to be a legitimate business by sending you an email that looks like it's coming from them. But then they are harvesting your details that you would put into the email or that you would share with them and using them to commit fraud or selling them on one of those websites that we just saw that live on the dark web. A classic example of a phishing email actually plagued Netflix. Most of us have Netflix accounts out here, and Netflix, there was an email that went out. It looked like it was coming exactly from them. It said, your account has been suspended. It asked their end users to click the link, and when you click the link, it asked for your details to reactivate your account. I believe it was over 1 million people that fell for this phishing email and had their credentials stolen just from that one single email that went out from a cyber criminal. The next thing I want to talk about is malvertising. Now, this might not be a term that you've heard before, but malvertisements, they look like regular advertisements, but they contain a code that attacks a visitor's system when they click on the advertisement, or it redirects them to another website that's a malicious website. Malvertisement campaigns are attractive to cyber criminals because they can easily be spread across a large number of legitimate websites, making end users, you know, you and I, think it's okay to click on those ads. This is a huge threat because just think, anytime you Google something on the internet and you go to a web page after that, you see how many pop-up ads come up next to you for that service or that item that you just Googled. A great example of this, you know, the New York Times, huge organization, they were hosting a banner ad, which is, you know, an advertisement on one of our web pages that attempted to social engineer people into installing a rogue antivirus tool. This ad was literally live for up to 24 hours before the New York Times, who is a huge organization, you know, they have an entire team of folks that work to keep their data safe, to keep their organization safe. And it took them 24 hours to realize that they were hosting this ad and before they could disable it. The next style of attack that I want to talk about are watering holes. Watering holes they're targeted attacks and a little nerve-wracking. You know, as I talk about a watering hole style of attack, you know, a cyber criminal, what they do is they actually watch you before they try to steal your information. So they're looking to see what websites you're visiting the most, you know, what you're doing on the internet, or even your PC, to try to understand you. They're going to try to get information about you, and they're going to try to social engineer their attack to be very appealing to you as an individual user. Then, you know, once they have this information that they've collected about you, the cyber criminal will then infect whatever websites, or they'll infect your PC with a malware or a virus. And then they'll use that virus or that attack to scrape or harvest your credentials. An attack group actually infected Forbes.com, another huge publication out there, in a watering hole style of attack that actually targeted visitors working in the financial or defense industries. The last way that that your data can wind up on the dark web that I want to talk about during today's webinar are web attacks. Today many websites, particularly large, high traffic websites, serve up content dynamically, from information held in databases. In layman's term, that's how Google, that's how Bing, that's how Yahoo works. You type in a phrase or you type in a service, and all of these websites come up that might offer you something similar. Cyber criminals, they're savvy, they know this. So what they do is they'll go into Google or Bing or Yahoo, whatever search engine you're using, and they'll look for websites that may not have the best cybersecurity policies or websites that aren't secure, and they'll attack those websites. They'll inject them with an SQL injection, which is basically working to find flaws in websites that have databases running behind them. And they'll install some sort of virus or malware into that system to steal your data. You don't even know this is happening because you're just browsing the internet and you think because Google brought it up that it should be a safe site. How can you be compromised? Malicious individuals, those cyber criminals, they look specifically for your email domain, your work domain, and who runs your organization. So they want to see top-level employees, those C-level, those B-level executives. Oftentimes, chief financial officers seem to be the biggest victim or targeted the most. Then once that cyber criminal has that victim or that email domain that he wants to target, they go after you. They'll use one of those styles of attacks that we just talked about. They'll harvest your credentials. And then from there, they will quickly move to post it up for sale on the dark web, or they'll exploit it. Most data, it comes from sites that require credibility in the hacker community. It truly is gangster mentality. They don't just want any data. They want data that means something. They want data that they can put a price tag on and they can sell it. That's how these businesses on the dark web make money. So what happens when a cyber criminal decides to exploit your credentials, your business information? Remember hearing about the WannaCry virus? It was all over the media a few years ago. The WannaCry virus actually targeted computers running on Microsoft Windows. The cyber criminals were able to get through to companies' data. What the cyber criminal did then was they encrypted the data, meaning they just hid it behind long strings of characters so you couldn't see any of your data. It was unrecognizable. And then they held that data over your head. They demanded ransomware payments in the form of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency because they wanted money. They knew you needed this data to run your everyday business, and they knew that you would pay to get it back. But many attacks, they don't have to be as notorious as the WannaCry virus to take an entire company down. Most ransomware attacks, they don't have a happy ending, unfortunately. Ransomware and data breaches are a huge security problem for any size company. In fact, I'm sure we've all heard in the media lately, we've heard about the Capital One data breaches, Marriott, Experian. Target even experienced a data breach a few years back as well, and we just see more and more of these coming up in the security landscape. They're not only affecting these large organizations, but they're also affecting small to medium-sized businesses as well. 58% of cyber attacks happen to organizations with fewer than 250 employees. All data, like we mentioned, has a price tag on the dark web. So what does this all mean for your business? Today, bad guys don't care about how noble your cause is. And there's several things that can happen when you're hit with a data breach or a ransomware attack. Truly, Your customers are the #1 target. Companies serving customers have the responsibility to keep their data safe, and keeping private information secure is an exception. We expect it when we use a service that we have to enter in any sort of private information, that they are going to keep it safe for us. And then a lot of the times, a company has to keep your data safe because it's the law. Data breaches, on average, cost a company 7 days of downtime. So you can lose productivity. So when it comes to keeping personal information safe, and if a company goes through a data breach, customers often feel violated. Ultimately, a company's failure to protect customers' information and keep it private will live in the age of the internet forever, bruising your company's reputation as well. For small to medium-sized businesses, costly data breaches can not only bruise a company's reputation, they'll halt productivity for however long it takes you to get your data back, but they can also be financially draining. Once hit with a security breach, many operations lack the financial resources to hire a PR firm to handle that bad press, but let alone employ a large legal team to help you, cope with all of this. Loss of private data can also lead to massive fines by authorities. If not HIPAA or GDPR, there's other regulations that each state has that have to be met when dealing with a data breach or a ransomware attack. Such fines can also be financially devastating. So now you've lost productivity, you've lost some vital records, your company's reputation took a hit. Is this something that you're all prepared to handle? With a lack of resources, businesses often succumb to the bad press and can wind up bankrupt in court. A study found that 65% of data breach victims, they lost trust in an organization after that data breach. And it's proven that between 60 and 70% of consumers will actually defect from a business if their information is compromised in a security breach or a ransomware attack. I couldn't even fathom this, but imagine trying to do business on 30% of your book. Unfortunately, with all of these staggering statistics and what happens after a data breach, 60% of small to medium-sized businesses will fold within 6 months of a cyber attack just because they're not prepared to handle what just they were hit with. But there is good news. I'm not here to deliver just all bad news on today's webinar here. I promise I'm not that negative. What we're here to talk about today is dark web monitoring, and how does dark web monitoring help keep your company's information safe. So dark web monitoring is a threat monitoring tool that provides 24/7, 365 days a year monitoring for signs that a company's credentials have been exposed on the internet. I want you to think about how many sites that you log into to do business on an everyday basis. We all have payroll sites, we all have banking sites. Some of us have CRMs that we have to log into to see our list of customers, so on and so forth. All of those sites that you log into, you use your work email, or maybe you use your personal email. I wouldn't tell your boss that, but you use a password in conjunction to log into those sites. It's those sites that are experiencing these data breaches and how your information is getting leaked onto the dark web. Now, something that we're all a little guilty of too, potentially, is using a variation of a similar password, or maybe the same password, throughout multiple of these third-party sites. Whether you are, maybe an employee of you is, but that's what we're monitoring for. We're making sure that as soon as an email address or a password hits the dark web, our tool here is going to report that to you. That way you have time to remediate that happening before, a cyber criminal gets into your sensitive account. We go into the dark web so you don't have to, because it's definitely a space that you do not want to be in. So there are some ways that you can secure your business. Our service is designed to help both public and private sector organizations detect and mitigate those cyber threats before stolen email addresses and passwords or other information is leveraged. Dark Web ID, we use a combination of human and artificial intelligence that scours all of these different sites on the dark web, and we're looking for the information that we're shown here: email addresses, passwords, dates of birth, social security number, credit, debit card information. Dark Web ID focuses on cyber threats that are specific to your environment. We monitor the dark web and other criminal underground sites for exposures of these credentials, again, helping mitigate the effects that we just spoke about prior. We accomplish this by looking for top-level email domains. When credentials are identified on the dark web, we harvest those. We make sure you know that data that we're looking for. And a lot of our data originates from credible sites, you know, memberships within the hacker community, like we talked about, that gangster mentality. And that's how we're looking for your information. Don't mind here, as we pause for a second, I'm actually going to jump in and show you an example of exactly how we find this information on the dark web. So you can see in real time how quickly we're able to uncover this information. So as I pull over here my screen, you'll see this is part of our service. We have a search tool where we're able to type in full email addresses, we're able to type in domains, and we're able to run searches, just to show you how quickly we can find this information. As we scroll down, and this is just a sample report to show you, but as you can see here, there's over 1,200 records shown. You know, the date found, this is exactly when we found these compromised credentials on the dark web. What specific email was found attached to the domain, the password that the cyber criminal was able to get their hands on, the source. So in this case, what source is to us is where we found this information on the dark web. And we talked about some of those different websites that live out there. The type would be, you know, how the cyber criminal got that data. So this could be a phishing attack or a data breach. The origin, you know, the website in which shared your credentials in the first place, you know, the website that experienced the data breach, those third-party sites that we're always asked to log into. And then here, this last column that you'll see, this PII hit, that's the other personal information that we're looking for. So it's things like your address, your first name, your last name, your username, date of birth, whatever it may be. If we find it, it'll be located under this column as well. And in a matter of seconds that it took us to run this scan, we now have all of this information to help keep your business secure. Now, with that being said, I am going to pass things back over to Andre here and let him take the webinar home.
So thank you very much, Katie, for that amazing information. So here at Arctic IT, we thought it'd be a good idea to show you some tips about how to protect your data, some few best practices to remember in order to proactively protect your data from cyber criminals. Let's start with passwords. Passwords do matter. And for those of you that don't know what MFA is, that's multi-factor authentication. This is a function that makes it so when you enter a password to enter your sensitive systems, such as your email or line of business applications that house personally identifiable information, the system will ask you for a second set of credentials. This could come in the form of like an app, an email, or a text message that sends you a PIN that you have to enter in order to get in there. Or it could also be an app that asks you just to verify that you're looking to gain access. Microsoft put out a report in August 20th of this year that says that this one simple addition to your security arsenal can prevent 99.9% of attacks on your accounts. That sounds like a magic bullet, right? Like an amazing number, but I realize it takes a couple more minutes to log in and do that little dance, but it will truly make an impact on your security stature. Aside from that, passwords should be complex. Using passphrases may help with that complexity. You can look up more information about passphrases at a website, useapassphrase.com. That's all one word, useapassphrase.com. And it kind of shows you how using these longer type of passwords can really protect your systems. Your password should be secured, so not jotting it down under your keyboard or something like that. An FBI friend notes that using password managers such as LastPass can be quite helpful in this regard. So if you've never heard of LastPass, you might try Googling that. Also, your password should be unique. You'd be surprised like the part that we've got underlined there, 80% of employees use same or similar passwords for work and personal accounts. Katie mentioned that during her presentation, and it's true. Sometimes we try to just change one little thing, and that's really not the way we want to be securing things when it comes to really sensitive areas of your network. Something like fall 2009 with an exclamation point at the end, that's not unique, secure, or a complex password. In fact, the Experian data breach that happened recently that you may have heard about on the news stemmed from a user's account that used the password admin as their credential to gain access to, as you might imagine, the wealth of private information that a credit score company could give a cyber criminal. So that's a pretty egregious missteps. We want to make sure that we're avoiding using those simple type of passwords. Next, we would like for everyone to take another look at their backups and how they're backing up their data. If all else fails, you want to know that you'll be able to rebuild your business. Making sure that you have an on-site backup that's encrypted and secure will be step one to getting you back up and running quickly. Now, in the case of the network room having a physical disruption, such as an earthquake that causes the room to flood or a fire breaks out, having a backup in the cloud or another location will be crucial. We always say location, location, location. We leverage industry-leading tools to facilitate this backup model for our managed services clients. And so it's important to try to find some way to have at least one off-site backup. Lastly is internet awareness. And of course, this is super oversimplified, but a couple of tips could be that to only visit sites you trust. And if you're going to enter any kind of credentials, your username or password, first take a look up at the top in the navigation bar. The URL or the name of the site, for example, www.google.com, will be displayed at the top. So you're going to want to make sure that that's spelled right and that the site that you're trying to go to is secured. Another thing is that in emails or in sites you're new to, make sure you hover your mouse over links to see where they may be taking you to before clicking. You got to be aware of those malicious types of links that take you to somewhere that you're not expecting. At the bottom of your screen, your browser or email program will show you a preview of where the link is taking you when you hover your mouse over the link. So that's going to be another little tip for you guys. Now we'd like to conduct a poll of everyone that's listening in. Joanne wants to jump in and cue this one question up for everyone.
Okay, we'll launch our poll. Thank you, Andre. How concerned are you that your organization's credentials are available on the dark web? Not concerned, slightly concerned, somewhat concerned, very concerned, or I'm terrified. How do I sign up? We're getting a lot of very concerned, which I would think so.
That's the reasonable response.
What do we have? We have 69% came in very concerned.
Well, that's understandable.
Yep. Okay.
Katie presented a lot of information about what sort of stuff is out there, and I'm sure everyone wants to know some next steps. But before I get to that, we did a little bit of a surprise for you folks. In conjunction with ID Agent, we did a little bit of recon work, a little reconnaissance on the publicly available information for each of the domains for the folks who signed up for this webinar. So do you want to know how many items it found on the dark web in total for just the companies of those with us today? The number is 754. So that's 754 types of the information that Katie was just showing you a moment ago in that list. And that's just for the domains of the organizations that are joined in with us right now on the call. So the information is already out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what to do next. And so I've got a call to action for everyone. Your action item is to follow up with us at connect@arcticit.com. Just send us a message and you can receive a complimentary dark web scan to review your company's results. And that's going to be connect, C-O-N-N-E-C-T, at arcticit.com, ARCTICIT.com. Please note that all the information shared is considered public information, so it's already out there on the dark web and people may be trying to shop for it. However, you need, like Katie was mentioning, a special browser to take a look at it. So using these state-of-the-art tools, we go into the dark web so that you don't have to. So I know it's a bunch of information. I imagine you'll have questions. So we'll stick around to allow you to enter your questions into the chat box or raise your virtual hand on the Connect to Webinar tool. And we can discuss them as a group if you'd like. But of course, we'd just like you to know that Arctic IT's got your back, and we'll leave this slide up. It's got my email so that you can reach out to me directly. And again, that connect@arcticit.com email address so that you can sign up for your free dark web scan. So thank you very much for listening in, and we'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andre and Katie. That was wonderful. We do have a question. Can personal emails be monitored?
Yes, the tool will allow us to put in individual emails. What we'd recommend as the best practice is to have the domain being scanned. That way, anybody who works for that organization can be monitored. But if there's a special instance in which only specific emails want to be monitored, then we can certainly work on it that way. But yeah, it's a function of the tool that we could leverage.
Okay. Should I be worried about additional exposure on the web after having my domain scanned?
So the data that we're pulling, like I mentioned before, is considered publicly available, so it's out there. The analysts from ID Agent aren't going to know who the partners are or who their clients are. They're pulling incredible credential exposures from the dark web, not placing it out there or using the data for any other purposes. It's just it collects it all in the tool that would allow Arctic IT to reach out to these clients and let them know what the situation is. And normally the action item is to go ahead and change a password. And like Katie mentioned, if that password is used in any other place, any other way by either the person or the organization, you want to make sure that all those passwords get changed as well.
Okay. And another one, how does the dark web help protect my organization?
Okay, that's a pretty broad one. There's a bunch of information that we spoke about, but the service is designed to help both public and private sector organizations detect and mitigate cyber threats that leverage stolen email addresses and passwords. So the tool Dark Web ID leverages a combination of human and artificial intelligence. It scours botnets, criminal chat rooms, blogs, websites, bulletin boards, peer-to-peer networks, forums, private networks, and other black market sites 24/7, 365 days a year to identify stolen credentials and other personally identifiable information. So there's a lot it does. It's looking out there so that if any information is out there and available for any bad guy to try to get at it, it's going to catch it and allow us to alert you to it. That's really the power of it, allowing us to allow the organization to make the appropriate decisions once they know that the information is out there before a breach that's more serious occurs.
Okay. How hard is it to enable MFA for an organization?
It depends on what you're enabling multi-factor authentication for. If it's for a program, it's going to depend on whether or not that program has the capability of doing that multi-factor authentication. Most large programs, your QuickBooks or programs that deal with sensitive data are going to have some way to enable that. Certainly email, we evangelize Office 365 being a Microsoft house, like I mentioned at the top of the webinar. But if it's Gmail or some other type of email, many times they're going to also have multi-factor authentication. And I would say that the heaviest lift is teaching folks what they've got to do as a secondary step, because normally it's just telling it to enable it and then getting everybody that second factor of authentication. With email, I've seen the easiest one is Microsoft provides an authenticator app. When you tell it, my username, my password, you hit enter, and then it'll pop up a little thing on your cell phone saying, are you trying to get into your email? And you just say yes, and it lets you in. There are other forms that will require you to have an app on your phone that has a number, a PIN with like maybe 6 digits on it that's constantly changing. Every so many minutes, it changes that PIN number, and so you just have to look up that app and use that PIN. But the actual enabling of it, might just take a couple of hours worth of work just to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. You turn it on in the tenant, and then, like I said, educating your folks and having a plan at the onset to educate your folks on how to use it.
Okay.
I'd be glad to engage in that conversation with anybody who might have more questions. So my email's right there, agonzalez@arcticit.com. You can feel free to message me if that's something your organization is interested in doing.
Okay. I do not see any other questions coming in. If you want to just
that was a good set of questions. I really appreciate the engagement, everyone.
And as everyone knows, that all of our webinars are recorded. So if you didn't get a chance to finish, or you'd like to go back and view it, please log on to our website, ArcticIT.com, and under the webinar tab, you'll find all of our webinar recordings.
Yeah, and we've got a few more coming up in November and December, so keep an eye out for that also on our website, ArcticIT.com. But yeah, we thank you for your questions and your attention. I think we can close it out, Joanne.
Okay, thank you.
And have a successful rest of your day, everyone.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.